Greetings everyone, this is Jeff Wilkerson, Professor of Physics at Luther College, bringing you the next in our series of what to look for in the night sky. We're talking about the week of May 27th this time around. So it starts out a little bit moon polluted, but even at the very beginning of the week, the moon is past full and waning away. So that means it rises later at night. So if you get out just at dark to do some observing, you should still have the sky available for you to see whatever you want to see. As the week wears on, the moon's going to rise later and later and later and get to be less and less full. So we'll have plenty of dark sky. So let's just take a look at that. On the evening of the 28th, Tuesday night, into the morning of the 29th, and we're really talking about the morning of the 29th. So it's the night of the 28th, but after midnight in the morning of the 29th, the moon's going to be about 2/3 full. And it sits below a pair of fairly bright stars. Deneb Algedi is a 2.9 magnitude star. Nashira is a 3.7 magnitude star. These are in Capricorn. And if you've been watching these videos, you might remember, you might not. You can go back and watch all of them over the last couple of years. We were watching Saturn. Remember, we've been talking about Saturn the last couple of weeks, and the sort of typical prograde motion for planets is eastward against the background stars. But if we go back a couple of years ago, when we're looking at Saturn in the summer sky, we were measuring Saturn's motion relative to Deneb Algedi and Nashira. And so now it's in Aquarius is where is where Saturn is, and so it's moved well east of there. So you can go see how far east Saturn is there. In fact, the moon will be next to Saturn 2 nights later. So the moon will have had to move quite a bit. Gives you a sense of the motion over time of these outer planets. Just how much have we seen Saturn move in a couple of years, a year and a half of observing here. But this region of the sky is going to be up into the sky where you can see it at about 2 in the morning. So we're talking about 2 in the morning right now. See, enjoy this 2/3 full moon next to a couple of stars in the tail of Capricorn. Deneb, we've talked about before. Deneb translates as tail, and Algedi as of the goat. So we got the tail of the goat here that we're looking at the moon next to. Now 2 nights later, the moon's going to rise 45 minutes. So this will need to be at about 2:45 to be well placed up into the sky, something like that. The moon will have waned away to less than full. So it's going to be about 40% full at this time, and still pretty full and bright. But it'll be sitting right next to Saturn. That'll be a fine pairing. That's it. Of all of these things, if you want to observe the moon, that's probably the one to go out and observe and to watch the moon moving relative to bright Saturn just above it. You got your telescope, good time to go take a look at Saturn and see what you can see. See what the rings of Saturn look like to you, and see what its brightest moon. See if you can see the dot of light that is its brightest moon tighten it there with it. So this is a great time. Then we go a couple of nights later, and the evening of the 1st into the morning of the 2nd. But again, this is all after midnight, so we're talking about really Sunday morning the 2nd here. The moon has waned all the way down to a beautiful crescent, about 1/5 full. And it sits a much greater distance away than it was from these other objects, but that's Mars. We failed to write that on there. That's Mars over there. So you may be a fist width away from Mars. You'll see the moon, but it's a good chance to go look at those 2 objects together. You got to wait a while again, another 45 minutes later, 3:30, before this gets up into the sky, and is good for observing. So we can watch the moon move against the background stars and catch up with the planets. Now, if you go out in the evening, remember the moon is rising in the morning, so the moon, even when it's fairly full at the beginning of the week, isn't washing a lot of stuff out in the evening sky. As it gets good and dark, so good darkness settles in 10 o'clock, okay? It depends where you are, your local time, but something like that. It's getting good and dark. We've been looking at Virgo, and Virgo's on that meridian line that connects north-south overhead, so it's about as high in the sky as it gets just as it's getting dark right now. And this is the martini glass asterism of Virgo that I often draw on the board and often talk about. Spike is the bright star down here. Porrima is the bright star, not as bright as Spike. Spike is the brightest star of all of this. And Porrima is the star that's just above there at the base of the cup part of the martini glass. Porrima is a double star. It's a binary star. We talk about it often when we're in this region of the sky. But Porrima it has a highly elliptical orbit, and the projection on the sky is highly elliptical. And so Porrima goes from the two stars and the double star being separated by about 3/10 of an arc second. Remember, an arc minute is a 60th of a degree, an arc second is a 60th of an arc minute. And so 3/10 of an arc second is really close. You're not going to see that as a binary star unless you've got adaptive optics and in good skies or something like that. This is a challenge. You're not going to go out in your backyard probably and look at that and see that. And you see, this is an orbit we can track. And so when we track this orbit, that's the sound of tracking an orbit. I don't know why. When we track this orbit, it reached periastron. It reached the point of closest approach in 1836, and then right around when 2007 transitioned to 2008, it reached it again. So these were very close. Now, so that means we're some 16 plus years past periastron at this point, and that's not a huge fraction of this orbital period. But one of the fun things about elliptical orbits is that when you've got an elliptical orbit like this, when you're in close, you're moving a lot faster than when you're far away. So in the past 16 years, we've opened that distance back up. And I don't know exactly what it is right now, but it's more than that. And this is a good project for you. My guess is if you want a long-term project over the next 10 years to watch Porrima, you probably can split those stars. They're going to be really tight right now, and you're going to watch space open up between them. And this is the kind of thing, if you're looking for something fun to do over a while, this is a great thing to do. So that's there. We go up the right side. We go up the west side of the Martini glass. We've got Zanaya and Zavijava as we move up this direction. Delta is this star and on up this way. Now, if you make a triangle like this, that looks like an isosceles triangle. At the apex of that isosceles triangle is M61. M61 is a big spiral galaxy. Galaxies come in two types. They come in spirals like this. When you think of galaxy, when you picture a galaxy, that's probably what you picture. It is this big spiral arms and so on. And they can be tilted any direction. So if they're tilted this way, it looks like a slash of light. If they're tilted this way, you're looking through the long part of the disk. And it can be a fairly bright slash of light. But if you tip up this way, you're looking through the thin part of that disk. Remember, it's got this, if you're looking through the thin part, you don't have as much integrated light. You don't have as much starlight that you're looking at, and it's fainter, but it's huge. And that's the case with M61 right here. Is that it's a big object on the sky, but it's faint because the light's spread out over a large area, the light of that galaxy, because it's a face-on spiral tipped up like this. So go out and see if you can see that if you've got your small telescope. We've got a good dark week here, especially as we get later in the week. You don't have to be out there right at dark. You don't have to worry about moon interference a couple of days into the week. Now, if you move on up this direction, you can do the same sort of thing with M49. Another galaxy is part of the Virgo cluster here, but it's probably easier to find M49. M49 is going to be about a right angle, but delta. You take delta and go, and it's going to help me draw it if I do that better. Delta and then make a right angle. Oh boy, that's a terrible right angle, but you get the idea. Is that it's a right angle down to a right triangle, down to Zavijava on the other side. So you can hop up this way. Now M49 is an elliptical galaxy, and elliptical galaxies are these smooth, so a spiral galaxy has a lot of dust and cold molecular gas in it that look like dark, obscuring regions. So a spiral galaxy has all these blotches and looks splotchy, just stars in an elliptical galaxy. You don't have that free dust and gas. Free dust and gas is where new stars are made, so we like to think about the disks of spiral galaxies as factories for new star formation. Elliptical galaxies, not so much. And so, but the elliptical galaxy, this is a slash of light. It's going to be brighter but smaller. So you're going to look like a narrower slash of light. M49. My guess is, let's do it that way. There we go. That's closer to a right angle. My guess is you're going to find M61 is a little bit easier to find if you don't have a go-to telescope. If you're poking around because of this sort of isosceles nature of this triangle and just up from Zanaya. You can use this to sort of zero in on this. And so it's a little easier to find M61, but it's harder to see. My guess is, from my experience, is that you're going to have an easier time seeing this elliptical galaxy M49. But it's up here towards the top of the opening of the glass, and maybe that's the way to work down sort of from the opening of the glass and then start poking around to see if you can see a right triangle up from Delta to Zabijava. But that's going to be an observing challenge to go find it. It's faint enough, you can't be zipping around with the telescope. You've got to be poking slowly, slowly, slowly. You'll zip past it without seeing it. So that's what we got. A couple of great galaxies in Virgo as part of the Virgo supercluster of galaxies for you to observe in the evening this week. And check out Porrima and start a decades-long observing project with Porrima. Why not? Why not have these fun things to do? Draw sketches and watch your sketchbook over the years and see what that looks like to you. But also in the morning sky, watch the moon as it dances along with the planets and some background stars. As always, everybody, thanks for watching, and we hope you have a great week ahead.